Video game weapons or video game guns. Somebody always has an issue with one, whether it's balancing, patching, nerfing, or just being totally broken in the first place. Either way, today we're talking about, yes, 10 of the most hated guns in video games. Starting off at number 10, we're talking Apex Legends, and we're starting hot with like the meme weapon. It's the Mozambique shotgun. At launch, it was abysmally bad, just totally worthless. You'd have better luck punching someone in the face than trying to use this thing. Unarmed was literally the better choice than picking this thing up. It was so infamous that the gun became a punchline. Even the developers ended up making fun of it. For a few years during April Fools, they'd do something Mozambique themed, like make all of them overpowered, stuff like that. The gun was such a joke that people started to appreciate it ironically, and slowly but surely, that irony became sincerity, like it often does. It helps that Respawn has given the gun some much needed buffs over the years, and these days, it's not a bad gun at all.
Let's go this way.
It's not the best, but as an early game pickup, it's perfectly serviceable. Back when the game first launched though, that wasn't the case. It took years for this gun to finally become worthwhile, and it only happened after years of jokes and memeing and ridicule. Like many video game shotguns, it's all too easy for it to become either overpowered or underpowered, and for years, the Mozambique was extremely underpowered. Seriously, like you could point blank shoot the gun like 3 times and somebody wouldn't die. It was a joke. Now at number 9, the suppressor from Halo 4. You remember how bad this thing was in Halo 4? It's an alien assault rifle that was worse than the regular rifle in just about every way. It had terrible accuracy, and the bullets weren't hit scan. They were pretty fast, but if you wanted to actually hit anyone, you had to lead your shots. The thing just looks weak. It's like a sparkler gun or something. The projectiles don't look intimidating. The accuracy, though, is the worst thing about it. Just look at it. The bullets just go everywhere they want. You literally have to be like right on top of somebody to actually hit them with all the projectiles. And this thing is supposed to be a medium range weapon. Now in the campaign, it's absolutely worthless. There's no reason to ever use this junk unless there's nothing else. But I guess in multiplayer, you can use it to, suppress people, like what it's called. I mean, I assume that's supposed to be the point. You shoot a bunch of projectiles that opponents have to avoid so your other team members can come in and actually get the kill with a good weapon. You can pretty much do that with anything though, so it's really kind of just a gimmick weapon, I guess, with no useful niche. It's the assault rifle, but worse. I mean, some people are probably still going to end up defending this weapon, or any of the weapons in this list. That's usually how it goes, but I mean, Halo 4 had a bunch of worthless weapons, honestly. The pulse grenade, that thing was junk. It barely did any damage when it connected, and it was supposed to be like an area denial type weapon that made this damaging field in a spot for a while, but the damage was so low and the circle was so small that it barely mattered. All the Prothean weapons really introduced in Halo 4 were kinda crappy and underwhelming, but these two were the worst of the lot. Next, over at number 8, if the original Dead Space had a flaw, it was that the guns that weren't called the plasma cutter were a little underwhelming. Most of them weren't bad, they were alright, mostly. It's just that nothing really could stand up to the awesome power of the plasma cutter, especially when it was upgraded. Like, it wasn't just a gun that you could go through the whole game using, that was actually the optimal strategy. That's how overpowered it ended up being. If the plasma cutter was easy mode, then the flamethrower is Iron Man impossible, because this thing kinda sucked. The biggest issue with it is that, well, it's not that satisfying to use. And keep in mind, I am talking the original Dead Space. I'm not talking about the remake. This has the problem that so many video game flamethrowers do, where it burns through ammo. It makes it almost impossible to see when you're using it, and it doesn't do enough damage. In Dead Space, it especially stands out as weak because of the entire game's whole limb chopping off thing. The plasma cutter can do it, the flamethrower can't. so the gun doesn't even take advantage of Dead Space's main feature. That's not the only downside this thing has. Funny enough, in the lore, they take great pains to explain why the flamethrower actually works in the vacuum of space, only for the flamethrower to not actually work in space in the game. Yeah, there must have been some wires crossed here, because they specifically say that the flamethrower uses hydrazine fuel for melting ice on comets for mining. But then when you go into space, suddenly the flamethrower doesn't work. I mean, I guess that would make sense if they were using a regular one, because you need air for flame, sort of, but like, they specifically came up with a lore reason why it would work, only for it to not actually work. So somebody messed up, and it ends up being a weapon that's totally unusable for significant sections of the game. Now, the remake did a lot to rehabilitate the flamethrower and actually make it pretty awesome, but in the original game, it was totally worthless. Now, next over at number 7, let's talk about the Magnum pistol from Halo 3. Now, in Halo Combat Evolved, the pistol, or whatever you want to call it, was a beast. It was a 12-shot magazine, a zoom scope, perfect accuracy, real stopping power, and a fast fire rate. It was the gun that just ruled. Everybody loved it. Obviously, Bungie realized that they made the pistol a little OP, so in Halo 2, they replaced it with something much worse. The Halo 2 pistol might be the worst version of the pistol in the entire series. I don't know if that's a hot take, but it chopped the magazine size down and removed the scope, making it only worthwhile as kind of an emergency weapon. It wasn't as awesome as the original game. At least it didn't look like the pistol from the first game, because that would be disappointing. But Halo 3, look, the original pistol is back. You'd recognize that distinct, iconic look, that shape, anywhere. I don't expect it to be quite overpowered, but it's got to be better than the pea shooter from the last game, right? That's when you realize that Bungie just pulled a fast one on you. They made you think you're getting the Halo 1 pistol again, but really, you're getting the pistol from Halo 2 with a different skin. This thing is just not very good. It's slow to fire, there is no zoom, it's inaccurate at long ranges, it's worthless at just about any range. Pretty much every other gun in the game is better, so, or at least has some situational use case that can make it effective, but the pistol doesn't really have anything. Technically, the one from the second game may still be worse, but when you compare this gun to the rest of the weapon roster in the awesome Halo 3, it looks especially worthless. It just serves no real function anymore. At least with Halo 2, you might use it here and there, but in Halo 3, there's always something better out there to get. It's like that Reddit meme said, you know, it's the gun you picked up by mistake. That's the only time anyone is ever actually going to use it. Next over at number 6, we're talking about the Gnasher shotgun from Gears of War. Now, we're kind of changing gears with this one. This is the gun that you love to hate. Back in the very first Gears game, this thing completely dominated multiplayer above everything else. It was the entire meta, and if you weren't on board, then you were probably dead. For Gnasher lovers, it's like one of the best guns ever. I love it, personally. It's like one of the best and most satisfying shotguns used in a game in a long time. But if you're a hater, it's like an overpowered, no skills required crutch that ruined the multiplayer game. In a way, they were both right, both sides really, because the Gnasher is a satisfying as hell gun to use. Gears multiplayer at its peak was so much fun, but yeah, getting blasted by these things, getting one-shotted all the time, did get old. They tried to balance it in Gears 2 and just ended up kind of nerfing it. It went from utterly OP to kind of worthless in the span of a single game. And they've tried to balance this thing in every single Gears sequel to varying degrees of success. The one thing that is for sure is that the Gnasher shotgun never got as strong as it was in Gears 1 again. And while that might be a breath of fresh air for some who want to use other weapons, it really was a fun gun to use back in the old multiplayer. It may be more balanced in Gears 3, which has its own more annoying and overpowered weapons, but nothing compared to the overwhelming power of that shotgun from the first game. That's why it's so hated. It's because so many people swore by it. We could all tell it was too strong, but either you went with it and used the shotgun all the time, or you tried to fight it, and that was usually painful. Next at number 5, the PMM from Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl. This thing is single-handedly the reason why so many people probably gave up on this game back in the day. For your first quest, you're sent to take out some bandits, and this dinky little thing is what they give you. For most players, the experience is the same. They approach the bandit camp, maybe sneak up, pull out a gun and fire, and it might as well be like a bug bite, because the guy you shoot completely no-sells it, spins around, and gives you a face full of machine gun fire. The starting pistol in Stalker here is weak, to put it mildly. It takes so many bullets to put down even the weakest enemies, and it makes the first half hour or so of the game a huge pain. Once you get an actual gun, things become a lot smoother, but until then you're stuck with this piece of crap pistol, and you're gonna die a lot. There are a lot of games with worthless pistols out there, but those games tend to give you a better weapon pretty much immediately. Not so much in Stalker. If you want something better, you're gonna have to earn it. For most people, this was just too steep of a hill to climb. Their adventure in Chernobyl ended there, all because the pistol that they stick you with at the start is just that bad, and honestly, frustrating.
Кореш, помоги! Бля, я машину поймал!
Now, next at number 4, let's talk about the shotgun from Doom 3. Because everybody remembers the shotgun from Doom. That thing is iconic. Simply one of the all-time video game shotguns. But something went really wrong with Doom 3. The game was meant to be something radically different, emphasizing darkness and kind of survival horror over high-speed brutal action. To this day, Doom 3 is still controversial. Some people love it, some people hate it. But if there's one thing most people can agree on, it's that the shotgun from Doom 3 was pretty terrible. Rather than being the versatile all-arounder like it was in the original Doom, the shotgun here is slow to fire, slow to reload, and extremely inaccurate and random with its firing pattern. You could stand just a few feet away from an enemy and completely miss them, or if you're lucky, you'll kill them instantly. It's all over the place. Most of the time though, you're just doing minimal damage at any kind of range. So the only way to effectively use the shotgun is to bait out an enemy attack, then get right up in punching range and fire. That's the only sure way to really hit something and do something. Even for a video game shotgun, the spread on this thing is absurd. I know that in general, Doom 3 is set in more claustrophobic, closed-in areas, but this is still ridiculous, especially because pretty much every other weapon in the game is fine for shooting at somewhat longer ranges. It just makes the shotgun almost completely worthless unless you're willing to put yourself in danger distance to use it. And for the most part, that's just not necessary. The game loads you down with ammo, so you rarely need to use this thing, but you still want to. It's Doom. Of course, you're gonna use a shotgun, but every time it's used, you're just reminded that it's a worthless piece of junk. It's not bad for taking out certain zombies or imps, but that's about it. Against anything else, you're more likely to get yourself killed than do any real damage with this thing. Now, id is usually so good with guns, so seeing them make something so junky, especially a shotgun here, it just hurts. How could these guys make such an irredeemably bad shotgun? I don't know, but thankfully the Doom series has made up for it. Now down at number 3, we have the Farsight XR20 from Perfect Dark. We're getting into another kind of Nasher Gears of War situation, but even worse. The Farsight was so overpowered that even people who used it kind of felt bad about it. It wasn't a gun, it was a troll by the developers, specifically designed to ruin multiplayer matches and destroy friendships. The feature set on this thing is ridiculous. It's a railgun that can shoot through walls. It's an instant kill no matter where it hits you. And oh yeah, it also has an auto-tracking feature so you can instantly find other players. This is something that would be a fun gimmick weapon in single player, but it shouldn't have been allowed anywhere near the multiplayer, because as a weapon, it's utterly broken, dude. If someone has this thing, then it's game over. They won. There's not even really a game to play. It's a shooting gallery, and everyone without a far sight are the targets. There are guns that ended up way too strong by mistake, and then there's stuff like this. Rare must have really known what they were doing with this thing, because they put it in the game anyway. I mean, come on, like, it's undeniably a satisfying gun to use. I mean, it's a super wall hack that's officially part of the game, but there's absolutely zero skill to using it. And even trying to find the player that has one, it can be really difficult because of like the maze-like layouts of Perfect Dark multiplayer maps. So it's a mess. It's just a miserable gun to play against. It's a beginner's trap for people setting up multiplayer games. You know, did you forget to disable the far sight? That's always a thing. If you forgot, you're gonna have a bad time. It's a gun that's hated, not because it's like weak or anything like that, but because it's ridiculously strong and awesome. It's the most unfair multiplayer gun ever. It's fun that Rare even put it in the game, but back when Rare just did whatever they wanted, these guys didn't care. They just put in a cool thing in a game, and like, balance be damned. That's how it used to be. It was the Wild West. The Farsight was cool, but everyone still hates it for good reason. Now at number 2, sticking with Rare, we have the Klob from GoldenEye. There's no worse sinking feeling than when you're playing with your friends, you turn a corner, and the weapon you pick up is the infamous Klob. The machine pistol is based on the Scorpion, which in most games is a pretty good gun, but GoldenEye's version of it is so bad. You really had to be there. Its fire rate is so slow, it's horribly inaccurate, and it's weak as hell. Literally any other gun is better than this. Your standard pistol is better than this thing. Slappers are better than this thing. It's a total joke. It does half the damage of a normal gun. It takes 2 headshots to kill a single guy in a game where every other headshot is lethal in single player. And in multiplayer, it's a mess. Just holding one of these things, you know you're gonna die. So what's the point of even delaying it? There's always that thing in the back of your head that like, maybe this time you'll get lucky and just kill someone with this thing. But of course, nope. Someone comes around the corner and kills you instantly with a way better gun, and your hatred for the Klob just goes a little further. You almost have to feel sorry for Ken Lobb, the game director that Rare named the gun after. Originally, it was going to be called the Spider, but the developers were worried about the legal issues related to the name, so they changed it to Klob. Yes, that's how a legend was made. A completely worthless gun, but the only one named after someone at Rare, unfortunately. It almost sounds like an insult, but he didn't seem to take it personally, so yeah. And finally, down at number 1, the KV Broadside from Modern Warfare 2, like the new one from 2022. This thing is straight up ridiculous. Now, the multiplayer offerings for Modern Warfare 2 were already controversial. A lot of players were just not happy with many of the choices the devs were making there. And what's their response to that? Well, they released the most overpowered, broken shotgun yet. We all thought the Lockwood 300 was bad with its like one-shot sniper shotgun capabilities, but I mean, that still required a certain amount of skill to use. There were at least some drawbacks to the Lockwood. It only had 2 shots, so like you could make your shot, you're exposed, and then that's a kill for the other team. The Broadsider, though, is automatic. It's ridiculously strong, too. At least when it first came out, it was capable of one-shot kills. There's a 6-round magazine that can be expanded to 12 or 25, and it's got a surprisingly long effective range. The Broadsider doesn't have the range of, the Expedite, but when you get double tap in less than a second, it doesn't really matter that it's not doing max damage at that kind of range. Now, in the realm of overpowered Call of Duty shotguns, this thing is up there with some of the worst. You'd think it would just be bad in multiplayer, but no. It's super effective in Warzone too, at least back in Modern Warfare 2. People were really hating this one. For a while, it was a gun with almost no weaknesses. It was a nightmare to play against, and it took all the strategy and skill out of the game. what little there was actually left in Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer at least. It seems like shotguns are just hard to balance. Auto shotguns probably even harder. But it really feels wrong to get taken out by a short barrel auto shotgun from like 10 meters away in a split second. It's just silly how overpowered this stupid thing was. The KV Broadsider is yet another gun that was so good that it actively made the game worse. But anyway, we've complained enough today. Those are 10 of the most hated guns in video games for various reasons. Whether they're OP, completely useless, or something else, there's a lot to talk about. And I know there are way more weapons out there that we can talk about, so let us know in the comments what your most hated weapons are. We could definitely make another one of these lists. If you like talking games with us every day though, that's all we do here. Clicking the like button does help us out. We would really appreciate that. And if you're new, consider subscribing, maybe hitting that notification bell because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.